to week 5 of programming with C++, week 5 of programming with C++. Now, in today's video, we'll be continuing with expressions and statements. So, the main objectives for today are iterative statements. We made mention of iterative statements in week 4. They are basically loops. Iterative statements are basically loops, right? So, um, let's go on ahead to delve deeper into iterative statements. So as I mentioned earlier on, they are known as loops, right? They are known as loops, and they refer to the repetition of a process or a set of instructions multiple times. The repetition of a process. So basically, you know that anything that is like a loop means that something that's being repeated over and over again. So treaty statements refer to the repetition of a process or loops. Yes. So we have three iterative statements or three types of iterative statements: the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop. The for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop. So you look at all these three. So let's move on to the for loop or the for statements. So the for loop is used to iterate over a range of values or elements in a collection. So the syntax for the for loop is as shown over here. So we have our for. So we first bring our for, then we bring a normal bracket, right? A normal bracket. Then within this bracket, we have our initial statement. Our initial statement can be for example, we initializing a value or a variable or something. Yes, that can be our initial statement. Then the condition of the loop follows. Then the update statement also ends it, right? The update statement is usually the pre-increment or post-increment, you know, prefix or postfix increment. Yes, prefix or postfix increment. That is basically the update statement. And then within these statements you are going to make in the bracket, you must end them with a semicolon. You must end each statement with a semicolon. So after our initial statement, we end it with a semicolon. Our loop condition, we end with a semicolon, and then our update statement. Then after we finish with that aspect, then we now go on ahead to introduce our curly braces. Now within this curly braces is where we will have the statements. Yes, this is the statement we want to make, or the line of code that should be executed after we've done our for loop, right? So a for loop, sorry, or a for statement is also useful for expressing a loop without an explicit termination condition. That means that we can infinitely run a for loop. Yes, we can do so by using this syntax over here. So when we use this syntax over here, our code or whatever we display at the console will keep on running until we break it or until we exit the loop. So this is an example of the for statements. So let me quickly show you that over here. So over here we are going to see how the for loop works, right? So we are going to try counting numbers from 1 to 5. We're going to try counting numbers from 1 to 5 using the for loop. So you remember the syntax. So we first bring our for, then a normal bracket. So within this bracket, we have our initial statements. As I said earlier on, our initial statements can be as initializing any variable. So let's go on ahead to look at. So now I have brought my initial statement and I have terminated it. Now I'll bring the loop condition. So sorry, what do I want the condition to be? Well, the condition is that if I is less than less than less than 5, yes, let's okay, no, less than or equal to 5. Let's go with that. Less than or equal, so we are counting numbers from 1 to 5, so less than or equal to 5. So let's do that. Less than or equal to 5. Then we terminate that as well. Then we bring our update statements. So we see that we prefix increment it or postfix increment, any how it's, so let's just pre-increment it. So let's go with that. Okay, so this is the first aspect of our for loop. So our initial statement, our um loop condition, then our update statement. So now let's go on ahead to write the line of code that should be executed once the condition is met. So we want to display I. Yes, we want to display I. What would I give us? So as I said earlier on, this is for counting numbers from 1 to 5. We want to count numbers from 1 to 5 using the for loop. So let's go on ahead to see if this code will run. Alright, so as you can see, yeah, it started from 0, yes. It started from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. So this is how the for loop works. This is how the for loop works. So it's very straightforward, a very easy syntax as well. So all you have to do is just follow the syntax. The syntax. So your for, then you bring your brackets. Then within the bracket you have your initial statement, loop condition, and update statement. Then you close the brackets, and each statement will be terminated. And I am also you bring your um, curly braces. Then you introduce your line of code that should run once the conditions have been met. Now we can also, you know, use use this to run um an infinite loop. Yes, you can use this to run an infinite loop, which we discussed earlier on. So let me quickly show you that as well. So the syntax was this: your for, then within the brackets you bring double semicolon. So this should run anything that you any statements that you input within these curly braces. It will run those statements infinitely until you exit the loop. So let's see out, uh, see out. Then let's go with hello. So this is supposed to run hello until um we exit the loop ourselves. So let's see. So you see, it's going to run hello, 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 hello until like infinitely. Yes. So until we exit the console. So that is for the infinite loops. Yes, the infinite loops. That is infinite loops in for loop, in the for loop. Yes. So let's go on ahead. So we know how um okay, I didn't explain how the for loop execution actually works. So this is how it works if you are interested. This is how it works. So the initial statement executes. The initial statement executes. Then the loop condition is evaluated. So if the loop condition evaluates to true, then you execute the for loop statement. So basically, what is to break all this down? It simply follows the syntax. Okay, the initial statement is first executed, then followed by the loop condition. If the loop condition is true, the for loop statement is executed. Then it moves on to the update statements. Then it checks that one. It executes that one as well. Yes. So step two will be repeated until the loop condition has been finished or has been evaluated to be false. So that is how the for loop execution works. That's how it works. So let's move on to the while loop statements. The while loop statement. So the while loop executes as long as it specifies conditions evaluates to true. Uh, the while loop executes as long as the specified condition evaluates to true. So a while statement executes its control statement until its condition becomes false. So the syntax is as displayed over here. So we have the while, and then the brackets. So within the brackets, we have our expression. Yes, the expression we've learned about expressions. So it could be anything, even the initialization of um, any variable can be an expression as well. And then our curly braces, and within this curly brace or within these curly braces, we will have our statements. Yes, so the line of code that will be executed when the condition is met. So that's basically it. So the statements can be simple or compound. We've done simple and compound statements. So and then the expression acts as the decision maker. So the expression can also be the condition, right? Can also be the condition. So let's go on ahead. Okay, so there's an example over here of a while loop, right? So let's quickly move to our code blocks and try to do something. So for the while loop, let me quickly comment what I've done here. We've done commenting now. Confident now. We know what commenting is. So let me quickly comment this. Okay, so we are testing out a while loop, right? So the syntax was what's our while, then we bring the brackets, then within the brackets we have our condition. Our condition can be this. So let's okay, um sorry, expression. Yes, our expression can be initialized of any variable at all. So let's do that. Or it can also be our condition. So let's basically put our condition within the brackets. So let's first initialize a variable. Oh, what have I done? Let me just okay. So okay, yes, that's really the problem. So let's first initialize a variable outside, then we bring our condition in the brackets. That will make the while loop actually accurate. So our let's use I, yes, int I, then it is 0. So let's just do that. Now what is our condition? Our condition will be in the brackets. So um I less than 10. No, let's go with 5. Let's go with 5. So that yeah, so I less than 5. Okay. Then we bring our curly braces. Now within these curly braces will be the statement that we would like the system to output. once the condition has been met. So see out I, then we bring our increment statement. Our increment statement, since we want to, you know, increment the value of I in the form of a loop, right? And in this case, the loop we are here is wow. This is the syntax, right? So I first initialize uh I, then I give a condition for I, that is by introducing the while over here. So after I did that, then I brought my statements that will be displayed at the console should the condition be met. And then I'm bringing my update statements, that is the pre-increment or post-increment statements. So let's go with plus plus I, then let's uh, terminate that. So let's see if our line of code or our code we've written over here actually works. Okay, so as you can see, for this loop, okay, I used less than, that's why there's no 5, right? But we are still counting numbers from 0 to 5, so let's just bring the equal to over there so that we get 5. Okay, okay, so we have our counting numbers over here, right? So from 0 to 5, from 0 to 5, so that's how the while loop also works. That's how the while loop also works. So the for loop and the while loop, they do the same thing, but they have, a different way of doing it, and also a different syntax. So let's move on to the do while statement. The do while statement. So for the do while statement, it is a type of iteration statement in C++ that executes a block of code at least once and then repeats it as long as a condition remains true. So that is what a do while statement does. It repeats a block of code, or it executes a block of code at least once and then repeats it as long as the condition remains true. So uh, let's look at the syntax. So the syntax is what is over here. Let me highlight it so that you see. So for the do while loop, right, you bring your do, then you bring your curly braces. Within the curly braces, you have your statements, right? And then after you introduce your statements and you terminate it, outside the curly braces, you continue with your while, and then you bring the condition. You bring the condition, then you terminate it again. So that is a syntax. So you do the curly braces, your statement to be within the curly braces, then you introduce your while outside the curly brace, and then the condition, then you terminate it. So let's quickly look at an example of the do while loop, or how the do while loop works. How the do while loop works. So let's demonstrate that code blocks. Let's quickly comment this as well. So now let's come down to our do. So for our do while loop, we first bring our do our curly braces. Now doing these curly braces will be our statements. What do the system to do for us? On the system to display this message for us. So see out I. So in this case, uh, let's see uh, the end line. Okay, then we bring our update statements, right? So could be a pre increment or post increment uh, update statements. So then outside this, we bring wow then a condition. So what condition is it? I is less than, mind you, we are still counting numbers from 0 to 5. So I should, what do I mean? Okay, less than or equal to 5 here, less than or equal to 5. Okay, so less than or equal to 5. Okay, so that should do it. Then we terminate it. Yes. Oh, sorry, we are supposed to initialize I. We didn't even initialize I. Yes, let's do that. So, usual I starts I is 0. Yes, I is 0. So let's quickly run this and see how the results will be like. So yes, as you can see, we have our counting numbers from 0 to 5. We have our counting numbers from 0 to 5. So basically how the do while loop operates or runs is that it will first check the first iteration uh, statements, the first iteration, right? So once you run this, okay, once you run this do while loop, what it does is that it will check the first iteration. So the loop will print the first number. The first number is 0 because I is 0. Initially I is 0, so the loop will print out 0 first, right? Then it will increase the value of 0 to 1 to come and check the update settings over here. Okay, so I will be displayed. First of all, I will be displayed. I is 0. Then to come to the update statement and to come and increase the value of I. Okay, so I will now become 1, or the next value will now become what? 1. And then the condition will now become the condition will now be followed, right? The condition will now be followed or checked. Okay, so to be checked until it is false. Now when is it false? It is false if I is what equal to 6. So once it gets to that point, then the loop stops. The loop stops because we instructed, or the condition we gave is that I should be less than or equal to 5. So once I is equal to 6, then it means that it's false. So the loop stops. So that's how the do while loop works. So let's move on. Let's go to exiting from loops. Exiting from loops. So when working with loops, for example, the for, the how, the do while, we sometimes need to exit early or skip parts of the iteration. So C++ provides several ways we can control the loop execution, right? So whether it's we wanting to stop immediately at a certain loop execution, maybe you've gotten an answer, you just want to stop it there, right? Or you want to skip some certain loops, right? There are various ways or methods you can do that. So first of all, you can use the break statement. The break statement. So the break um, immediately stops the entire loop and continues execution after the loop. So uh, the break can be used in the for, the while, and then the do while, and also switch. Yes, we saw that in switch. Yes, that's where we use the break. So break can also be used in for the while and then the do while as well. So an example is okay. Let me just practically show you that. Yes, let me practically just show you that how we can break out of a loop. So let's quickly look at that. So let's comment this. So right now we are trying to, or I'm trying to show you how we can, break or exit from a loop when the condition is met. So first of all, we bring, in this case, you are doing it for the for loop. We are doing it for the for loop. We are using the for loop over here. So you know our syntax already. I'm not going to repeat that. So let me just go on ahead. Then one. Okay. Then loop condition. So if it- then curly braces, then uh, our uh, updates, I said updates, sorry, our statements. Yes, the line of code we would want the system to execute once the condition has been met. So in this case, since we are trying to meet a certain condition, we are trying to meet a certain condition and then end it there. So we just go on ahead and say if I is equal to 3, yes. So let's use 3. If I is equal to 3, then what should the system do? It should break. It should break. There will be no need for the system to continue. That's the condition we are looking for. If I is equal to 3, the system should just stop. So it will just stop at 3. It should just stop at 3 instead of completing the loop till let's say 5. You see, for the previous examples we did, where we're counting uh, numbers from 0 to 5, yes, we need to instruct the system that it should, end at a certain number, right? We were just, trying to count from 0 to 5. So every number was considered in the loop up until 5. But over here, we want to meet a certain condition. We want to stop the loop at 3. So what do we do? So if I is 3, then we just break it. We just break it. So we just exit the loop at 3. So then let's go on ahead to instruct the system to display that for us. So see out. Okay. So now that should do it. Let's see if this code will run. Right. So 1 2. Okay, 1 2. So it's going to stop at 2. It's going to stop at 2. So we instructed the system that at 3 it should just break. But I don't know, for some reason it's stopping at 2. Let me try to see if I made any mistake. Okay, that is it. That is basically it. There was no mistake there. The system will not stop at 3. It will stop at 2. Yes, 3 is like the cutoff point. Uh, 3 is like the cutoff point. So 3 will not be showing at the output. 3 will not show at the output. Rather 1 and 2. 3 is the cutoff point. Yes, so 3 wouldn't have to show. Okay, so that is how the break works. So break is used to exit a loop when a certain condition has been met, right? So that is it for the break. Then we can move on to continue. Can move on to continue. Can move on to continue. So for continue, basically we used to like skip. It used to skip a certain loop. Yeah, maybe we are counting numbers from 1 to 5, and then we want to skip three. Want to skip through. So that's when we use continue, right? That's when we use continue. So it's like basically used to like skip some part of the loop we don't want. So let's also see how that is done. So move on here. Then um we okay. Let's just modify this over here. It's basically it's the same syntax as the break, right? So like it's the same thing. You just have to remove break and put continue, right? But then the functions are not the same. For break, it will end at 2, or it will end at the it's like you give it a threshold, then it ends there. That is for break. So once that condition has been met, it will end there. It won't consider the other loops or the loops coming after that. But then for continue, it will skip the value that you have introduced, right? It will skip the condition or the value that you've introduced. So in this case, let's see what happens as I put continue over here. Continue. Sorry, continue. Okay. Let's see what happens once I put continue over here. Uh, so as I was saying, we see 1, 2, 4, 5. It skipped three. It skipped three. That's basically what the continue does. That is what the continue does. The continue will skip any value at all you want to skip, right? And then break will end at the value that you want it to end. Then the loop will stop being executed. So that is it for the continue and then the break. So these are methods of exiting a loop. Methods of exiting a loop. We have the break, we have the continue. So let's move on to nested loops. So nested loops are basically loops in another loop. So a nested loop is a loop in another loop. Just like how we had nested if statements, and if statements in another if statements. So let's also quickly look at that. So the syntax is no different from how the nested if statements were. So you simply bring a loop. The loop can be for wow, do wow, any of them. But in this example, we use for. So you can introduce your for statements. Yeah, your for loop or your for statements. And that can be the first loop, or the first for loop can be your outer loop, and then the second one you bring within the first or the outer loop is the inner loop. So in doing so, you have a nested loop, right? So let's demonstrate that quickly. So let's comment this, and let's comment this as well. So as I was saying, we just have to um, do two for loops. So one will be an outer for loop, and then the other for loop will be the inner for loop. So let's just go on ahead. So for then int I, so int I is 1. Let's just assign 1 to I. Our loop condition so will be such that I is less than or equal to 3 here. So then terminate that, then our have these statements, right? So okay, then this is our first loop. This is our first loop. Then within our early basis, we introduce the second loop. So for then another int, in this case j, you can't use the same I. That wouldn't make sense. So let's use j. Let's use j. Then equal to. So j as well is also equal to 1. Then our loop condition, j is less than or sorry, less than or equal to 2. We terminate that. Then our update statements. Then we are done with that. So what we've done here is that we've uh let me highlight it for you so that it's okay. So we initialized or we started a first loop. Then within the first loop we also added another loop. So this is a nested loop. It's a nested loop. This is a nested loop. So now for this nested loop, right, we now go ahead to bring our statements what the system should execute if the conditions are met, right? So let's go ahead. So we want the system to display this fast. So see out. So the system will display both I and j. So let's see. In order not to make the values mixed up, I'll just give them a name. So I'll name I and I'll name j j. So let me just do that. So I equal to yeah. I equal to let me okay. I equal to then I then j j where's j where's j where's j okay j j that one to yeah yeah yeah. So that's what I've done. Right, in order not to make the values mixed up, I've assigned sorry I forgot to bring the equal to sign. Okay, so I have assigned the letter I for all I values and then the letter J for all J values, right? So that's what I've done. Now let's run this code and see if it actually works. Let's run this code and see if it actually works. So I have to actually remove one of this. Okay. Oh, why is it why is it doing this? Is there a condition that's not being met? Let me see. So I've seen the problem. So instead of me to have, in the update statement of the J, I was supposed to bring J and I typed I. So that was my mistake. I was supposed to type J over there and I rather typed I. So that was why the code was, malfunctioning. Well, let's see. Right. So as you can see, this is our results. This is our results. Right. So this is a nested loop. This is a nested loop. So a loop within another loop, a loop within another loop. So how this nested loop works is that the outer loop will start. The outer loop will start. Obviously, it has to start because it is the outer loop. So the outer loop starts. So what value was assigned to the outer loop? Now for the outer loop, we used I, and then I was initially 1. So the outer loop will start as I is equal to 1. That's what will start for us. Then the inner loop will run completely. Okay, the inner loop will run complete. So for any value of the inner loop will run completely. Okay, so for I is equal to 1, J will run completely. So J will be equal to 1. For I is equal to 1, J will be equal to 2. Okay, then the outer loop will now increase to 2. It will now increase to 2 since we've instructed or we've written down our update statement for it to increase, you know, uh, for it to increase up until the value gets to 3. So it will now increase to 2. So when it increases to 2, the same cycle will be repeated again. So for any value of I, in this case 2, j will run completely. So I will equal to if I is equal to 2, j will be equal to 1. If I is equal to 2, j will be equal to 2. Then it will increase again to the next value, or the next and last value. So I is equal to 3. So for I is equal to 3, j will be equal to 1. For I is equal to 3, j will be equal to 2. So that's how the a nested loop statement works. That's how the nested loop statement works. So that is it for week 5. Hope to see you in the next video. That is week 6.